and submit code. So let's actually see who's able to solve this problem here. Okay, we can tell that 582,899 people have gone on HackerRank and solved it. So over 500,000 developers. It's not a crazy difficult problem. But let's go ahead and do this. Let's spend 5 minutes and see if you can get this Java if-else program completed, and then we can see in the end how you guys solved it. Okay? So let's all solve this problem. And then at 5:38, let's share our answers. Oh, we'll make it perfect. Okay, let's see. So was anybody able to get this solved in this amount of time? If you were, go ahead and share your solution into, not quite. Okay, well, why don't you just post what you do have, and then we can maybe do it together. Don't have the even or odd conditionals. Okay, well, let's see. Is anybody willing to post what they've been working on to this point? All right, well, we can go ahead and do it together. Oh, someone's willing to share. Okay, let's see. So this student has some if statements. Very good. Let's go ahead and post it in here, paste it in here, and we'll try to run the code. And we see, yeah, they passed the sample test cases. Now we can do the full code. Yes, everything worked perfectly. So let's review exactly what's going on with this code. So basically, we're going to be using the modulus to determine if the number is even or odd. Okay? So let's read through this first bit of code and see what exactly is happening here. If n modulus 2 doesn't equal 0, if a number divided by 2 until there's some sort of remainder, if that doesn't equal 0, what do we know about that number?
It's odd.
Very good, it's odd. So we know that this number is going to be odd. So odd will print weird. All right. So line 17. Okay, line 17, this just has to do with the scanner. This means that it's going to skip certain characters. Okay, so it will skip the new line and it will skip just some other different values that we don't need. All right. Somebody needs to be muted. I don't see anybody that's... Oh, I see. So I muted this person, but you guys can still hear them. Oh, I see. Okay. So let's see. Let's look up scanner skip. We can get back to this problem. All right. So let's check out this tutorials site. Okay. All right. So we see here, it is a scanner class method which skips input that matches the specified pattern, ignoring delimiters. Okay. So yeah, when you're talking about regular expressions, it's the same idea here. All right. So you're talking about certain patterns that you're skipping. In this case, they're just talking about new lines, and there we go. So basically, it's provided to you. Okay. So yeah, just right click on the person. just right click and mute them. But don't you guys have the ability to mute them? Perfect. Perfect. Nice. Nice. Because it's possible the person just sort of like, came to class and then stepped away. They got called away for something like that. That was intense. Okay. Well, maybe there's a way for me to mute everybody, but I don't want to do that because I like when some people are able to speak up. So anyways, scanner.skip is provided for you, so I just wouldn't worry about it too much, right? So that just means that certain values won't be included. All right. All right, good. People are showing how to mute. Oh, you know what? If I do server mute, all right, now he should be paused, right? Because I just did a server mute. Okay, perfect. Server mute does it. So in the future, somebody doesn't respond, and then I do server mute. Great. Well, I'm definitely still learning tricks about how to use Discord, which is pretty good software. All right. So now, if we get into the even numbers have certain conditions. So let's look at the even number. In Blackboard, we'd be screwed. Does Blackboard have like discussion like this? I didn't even know that. That's interesting. Oh, it does have a stream component. Okay. And some of your instructors are using it? Okay. Some of your instructors are using it. That's pretty good. Oh, all of them are using it. Wow. Okay. One using Cisco WebEx. All right. Someone likes Discord better. That's good. I like Discord. It's nice. It's kind of funny that I read an article about Discord in the New York Times, and they said it's just for gaming. And I said, "Wow, how can people be so ridiculous? Like, yeah, gamers do use it, but you could use it for other things too. It's not like, it's just not like for one thing." But yeah, when I hear gaming, I think efficiency. That's another thing. Like gamers push the envelope with technology. I mean, yes, it started with gamers, but it evolved. People think gamers are big and bad. Yeah, I guess there is certain like a certain stigma still, even in 2020. But yeah, it's kind of silly. Well, let's see. Let's get back to this question here. So let me go ahead and post this again. And we go here. We see within the even numbers, we've got certain qualifications, right? If the number is between 2 and 5 inclusive, we're going to say it's not weird. If the number is between 6 and 20, it's weird. And if it's greater, we say it's not weird. All right? So that's it. We're just taking their instructions and turning it into Java code. Now, some people needed more time to do this problem. And, I do try to move things along quickly. So the good news is you can go back and you can look over all of these problems at your own leisure. Like if you're really interested in this field and you really want to improve, HackerRank is just another really good site. So you can see some other problems they have on there. They have loops. loops 1, loops 2, Java data types, int to string. That's just lots and lots of good problems. So another great site to practice on. Okay, so then we see another question. We can do the ifs like this as well instead of nested. So you can say if, let's see. So Dale is saying if it's not even, then it's going to be weird. Else if, yeah, that should work. That looks right, Dale. That looks good. All right, so then we have another solution here. Yeah, it worked. So, but yeah, no, it looks good. Like it passes the logical test. I mean, it looks good. I would even say with the else ifs, you could just move the indentation. You should probably move over. I would just have like the if and the else ifs and the else all on one line, like all the way over to the left. Oh, HackerRank added that in. I see. All right. Well, looks pretty good. Everybody is doing a good job, and I think we can move on from HackerRank. So later on, we'll go back to it, and maybe like I offered extra credit for getting the Memer command line program. Maybe we can do something with some of their certifications on HackerRank, and there we go. All right, so the next thing we can do is we can talk about the textbook. So let's, oh, it was Discord that moved it. So go ahead and click on that link there. And it should take you to strings and things. Okay, so everybody click on this link that says strings and things. Well, it should say just green tea press, but it'll take you to something that says strings and things. Okay, so it says in Java and other object-oriented languages, an object is a collection of data that provides a set of methods. For example, scanner, which we saw in section 3.2, is an object that provides methods for parsing input. System.out and system.in are also objects. Strings are objects too. They contain characters and provide methods for manipulating character data. We explore some of those methods in this chapter. Not everything in Java is an object. Int, double, and Boolean are so-called primitive types. We will explain some of the differences between object types and primitive types as we go along. So I think this chapter does a good job of teaching the vocabulary. It's pretty important. We've seen a lot of these things like with substring, and it's not super long, but it's a good chapter. So make sure that you spend a bit of time going over it. Yeah, strings are immutable. So once you make a string, you can't change it. And let's go ahead and prove that. Let's go to REPL. So I'll start a new replet. Let's go ahead and call this new REPL let's call it string practice. How about that? String practice summer 2020. Okay, so here we have the REPL. Posted a link to it in the site. And we can start by just making a string. So we can say string my name equals David Freer. And then we can go ahead and print out my name. And there's no big surprise there. If I run this, I should just see my name, right? So we made a variable, and now we're printing the variable. No surprise, except doesn't work. Oh, I have one too many parentheses. So let's go in here, erase that parentheses. I can use Control Enter to run it as well. And there we see my name. Now, we can also run some methods on this string. Like we can say system.out.println my name dot, and there is a method in Java called toUpperCase. toUpperCase. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. And no big surprise, toUpperCase will print out my name in all caps.
Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
How would you take a name, like for this example, David Freer, and how would you initialize it so it would just say D and F?
Oh, you mean like you want to find a way to just get the first and last?
Yeah, just like initials, like D and F for your
Oh,
name.
okay. Well, yeah, that's a fun one that's not too hard. So, before we do that, let me just go ahead and print it out again. So I'll just put in here student suggestion get initials, and we can do that. We can get the initials. But before we do that, I want to print out my name again. System.out.println my name. And the thing is, because it is immutable, the name is going to go back to just regular. Okay? Well, the only way you could change it is by using the equal sign. So if you say my name equals my name, I'll do it on the line below. So if you were to say my name equals my name dot toUpperCase, now if we print out system.out.println, no, you can't append anything. You could only just make a new string variable. So I'll just put now this is uppercase. All right, so let's run it to show it. And perfect. Now, there is something called Stringbuilder that you can append to, but a string, no, can't append to it. So yeah, to answer Ivan's question, if you make a string equal to nothing and then later just use the equal sign to set something else in, that's really common. People do that all the time. So strings are always passed by value. Let's see. Let's think this through. If you don't get the all right, strings are passed by value. Why is this a hard thing for me to think through? Well, you can't change the string. You don't have access to the memory location. Yeah. That's true. No. It's in C. You do have the ability to work with pointers. I mean, you can think in Java that the object reference is a pointer, but you can't do as much with it. It's like a really weak pointer. So you definitely have more access to memory with C++. So C, C++, and now my computer is getting slow. C, C++ give you more memory capabilities, let's say, right? Like you have more low-level memory capabilities. Whereas with Java, the memory is really handled by the garbage collector, and you don't have as much low-level stuff. But yeah, I would say like passing it by value makes sense because you can't change it unless you reset it with a string. I saw an expression in a doc where they were saying that a string. Yeah, I mean that is true. We can do that example. So that's not a bad thing to bring up. So we can say an array of characters called your name is going to equal to new char 10. Okay? And then we can say your name position 0 equals H, and then your name, boy, maybe 10 is going to be too long. Let's just make it 4. Okay. Let's make it 5. We'll just do hello. Okay. Hello. Your name, L. Your name, L. And then your name, O. Okay. So now we have an array of characters. We can set that into the string. So we could say string yn equals new string, new string, and then inside we can just send your name. And then we could say system.out.println yn. Let's see if this runs, no problem. Yeah, it works, no problem. Yeah, you can convert the array of characters into a string. They're totally convertible. So I guess you could think of the string like a wrapper class to an array of characters. Most people using Java are not going to use an array of characters. And yn is just the name of a variable. I just abbreviated your name. So just your name abbreviated. It's hard to grasp the object concept. Well, let's see. Let's see. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's go back here, and a box with methods. I'm gonna thumbs up that. I like that. A box with methods. Let's put a thumbs up to that one. Yeah, that's basically what it is. The object is like the struct that you guys learned about in C++, but okay, so here we have a new question, but it has a bit more capabilities. Did I convert the array of characters to the string using new string? So the best way to answer that would be one of the string constructors takes in an array of characters. So string will accept an array of characters. So that's just one way that we can take the array of characters and turn it into a string so that we can use all the string methods on them. Like if we were to look at your name written out and press the period, we don't see that many methods available to us, right? we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 things available. So we'll just put a little comment here. 11 available with array of characters. But then if we go down to yn, and then we could say here, yes, arrays are objects. Then we go down to yn and we scroll down. Look at how many methods are available to us with strings. Strings have a lot more things built in that we can use. So strings have many more methods available. Okay, so that's the idea, that strings give us more capabilities, more power. So you can write it out like this. If you wanted to, you could say string next string equals new string testing. Okay? Or you could say string current string equals testing. All right? So the point is, if you want, you can write them out like this. You may create the string this way. Or you may do it this way. You may do it this way. And the reason is because you're going to be making lots of string objects. So in Java, they made it shorter. So line 23 is how you're going to be doing it most of the time. And yes, they're both objects. Next string and current string are both objects. Now, behind the scenes with the Java virtual machine, is there any difference between the two? I don't know that. I just know that for most practical purposes, they're the same thing. So if you did it without the new, you couldn't pass the array of characters. Okay, that's a good question. So you're saying, let's try that. I'm not sure. So we have string testing equals, and then we're just going to put here equals your name. I don't think this syntax will work. Wait, it is working. Let's see. System.out.println. Yeah, so it looks like it is working. Testing. So we run it. No, it doesn't like it. You have to, for this case, you have to run some sort of method. Like I think let's see, what's the other one? Let's try toString. Let's see if toString does it. Wait, no. That wasn't the one. I'm in the wrong spot. See, I'm got to get in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to try your name dot toString. Let's see if this works. And you didn't work. Did not work. Because look, it gave us this garbage. So I think the way to do it is to use the equals new string, and then we put in here your name. So I think that's the only way to do it. Maybe there's another way of doing it. So let's see. So reference to object. What exactly did you mean reference to object? Well, let's see. So if we want to go from an array of characters, I think there might be a way of doing it with character. Let's see. If we say character dot to no, that's not it. Let's see. String dot. Okay, so we've got join. A join We've got copy value of to string. That might do it. Copy value of. Well, there might be another way that I'm just forgetting at this moment, but this is basically like on line 26, the way that I jump into, like, that I know that you can go from an array of characters into a string. So if something is immutable, you have to do a lot of copying. Well, yeah, that's true. Now, if you want something that's a string that you can change, there is something called the string builder in Java we can look at. So let's go ahead to the Oracle website for String Builder. And let's take a look at this link. Okay, so it says here, String Builder objects are like string objects, except that they can be modified. So this is the main point. So if you do need to be doing a lot of changes, you can use the String Builder. Internally, these objects are treated like variable length arrays that contain a sequence of characters. At any point, the length and content of the sequence can be changed through method invocations. Then it says strings should always be used unless string builders offer an advantage in terms of simpler code. So they give an example at the end of this section. Let's go down here. All right. The string demo program that was listed in the section strings is an example of a program that would be more efficient if a string builder were used instead of a string. String demo reversed the palindrome. Here once again is its listing. So does anybody in here know what a palindrome is without searching for it? Yeah, race car, exactly. Very good. So it's just a word the same front and back. Good. So let's see. So they are going to have an array of characters, temp char array, and then a char array, another array of characters. Put the original string in array of characters. Okay, they use char at. A Toyota, good. And then they're going to reverse the array of characters. And then they're going to have string reverse palindrome equals, and this is the syntax that we saw before. Right? This is the thing that we were talking about, how you can go from an array of characters into a string. And if you convert the palindrome string to a string builder, you can use the reverse method in the string builder class. It makes the code simpler and easier to read. And solving problems on Code Wars through the years, I definitely have found the reverse method in String Builder to be very handy. So it might help you on some problems. But that's just showing how you can use the reverse method in String Builder to make simpler code. But the first bit of advice from the people at Oracle is you should probably usually just be using strings. Well, actually, no, they say always. Strings should always be used, unless there's some advantage. So the default is just send the string and then work with the string. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy this little tidbit into the Discord. Great. Okay, so the other thing that a student asked is, how can we get the initials? And I think that's a really interesting, useful problem. And let's go ahead and do that together. So one thing we can do is we can have an array of strings called names. And we can get the first name and the last name because they're separated with a space. So we can say my name dot split, and we'll just split based on the space. And then if we want to get the first letter and of the first and the first letter of the second, we can say string initials equals nothing. And then maybe they have a middle name. So we'll say, oh, you know what? We'll skip the middle name. We'll just get the first and then the last. So we can say initials equals names at position 0 And then we want to get char at 0. And then we want to add that to the names dot length -1 dot char at 0. Okay, so we want the first and we want the last. And then we want to print out the initials. So we're going to say my name has initials, and then we'll just do plus initials. Okay, let's give it a run. Okay, and look at the problem. It says incompatible types. Int cannot be converted to string. So we have to get this char at, and we have to let Java know that we want to turn it into a string. So if we just put in the string symbol in there, okay, then it will work. So to answer your question, let me just copy this here. There we go. So let's go through this line by line. So first, I'm taking the string that's in my name and I'm using split. So I'm using split. Now, to make sense of this, why don't we actually go to the documentation? So we can say Java API string. And then we can go ahead here and we can click on the documentation. So go ahead and click on this link that I just posted. And then just do a Control F. Just search on here for split. Okay, then click on split. And it should take you to split. Splits the string around the matches of the given regular expression. This method works as if by invoking the 2-argument split method with the given expression and a limit argument of 0. Trailing empty strings are therefore not included in the resulting array. Okay, so what are regular expressions? Well, regular expressions are a way of parsing strings. They're very powerful. I mean, you can really specialize in regular expressions. I'm not an expert at regular expressions, but there are lots of websites that focus on them. See what is a good, oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. If you're interested in this, I'll go ahead and post this link here. And if you really want to get good at doing Code Wars problems, you'll get good at regular expressions, because you can go through some really long problems that it would take me many lines with regular expressions and really save time. So just out of curiosity, how many people before tonight have heard of regular expressions? Anybody?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody? Okay, well, it's okay. One person, a few people have. That's cool. That's cool. So if you haven't, you might want to look into this site. It's not going to be a part of this course in terms of, and regex. This just means regular expressions. One of those things you avoid. I mean, they are difficult. I'm not an expert at regular expressions. You know, if you get really good at it, you can make it like your specialty. I had a student who worked at a healthcare startup. You know, there's not too many startups in South Florida, but his startup actually got purchased by a really big company. He and a friend from school, they got a lot of money. He lived in a really big house, and he eventually started working. I guess he didn't get enough money to never work, because he kept working for the big company. But the company decided that it would be good if he got a degree. So they said, okay, we'll pay for you to get your degree. He went to Miami-Dade. He started getting his degree. And of course, he was an excellent programmer. He was just an amazing developer. He still participated a lot. He ended up taking a lot of courses with me, all the way through Android, so C++, Java, Android 1 and 2. Really interesting guy, really cool guy. And he said within his company, if there was a regular expression, that he was like an expert. He was really, really good at it. And what he needed them for was to parse through a lot of healthcare data. So they had all these patient records. They needed efficient ways of doing it. And, that's just one example of a real world use for the skill. And you can parse data in other ways, but he's just an example of a student from not too long ago who used it just in everyday working. Okay, so very good. So we can now see how to get the initials. And why don't we think of an example for you guys to do with strings? So let's see. Okay, I think I've got a good one. Why don't you ask the user for 2 names? This is just going to be something really straightforward. Return the longer string. Return the longer string, and we're talking about by characters. Okay. If the strings are equal in length, return them both. And let's go ahead and give this method a name. So we'll call this method public static string comparison, and takes in string A and string B. Then you're going to do your comparison here. So compare here. And then you're going to need to have your import java.util.scanner. Import java.util.scanner. And then you're going to need a scanner in here. Okay, scanner equals new scanner system.in. Okay, so we've got our comparison. You return the longer string by characters. If the strings are equal, return them both. So return them both combined. So, right, like you see, if they enter, so for example, if they enter AABB, they're the same length, return AABB. And we'll do a few more examples. For example, if they enter AAA and BB, what are you going to return? Return AAA. Okay, so let's copy this here. And let's paste this in here. Java. All right, so now we see the link inside of Discord with the code. Well, not link, we just see the code inside Discord. And I'm asking you to make a string comparison method and ask the user for 2 strings, find out which is the longer, and then return that. If they're the same, return them combined. So why don't we spend 7 minutes doing this? So at 6:30, post 6:30, post a link to your REPL. Okay? Any questions on what we're doing? All right, go ahead and give it a try, and let's see if you guys can get this working the next 7 minutes. All right, so let's go ahead and share some of these solutions. So go ahead, if you're finished, and copy and paste the link to your REPL inside Discord, and then we can go ahead and compare some different solutions. Okay, so we have one here. Let's just copy and paste it. Take a look. Okay, so we have the student writing public static string, string comparison, and then string A, string B. If length of A is equal to the length of B, return A plus B. Otherwise, return is the length of A greater than the length of B? If so, then return A. Otherwise, then return B. So here, great. We see a cool example of the conditional operator. So we just go ahead and copy and paste this into our Discord. And that's nice. This saves us from having to write if else. Okay, so conditional operator, ternary operator, but you get the idea, right? There's some sort of true false condition followed by the question mark and then the colon. Very cool. And then inside the main method, we need to have the scanner. We need to have next line, and then he had to call string comparison. Okay, he had to call string comp. So this is another important line down here because you do need the practice of calling your method. Now, in this case, when I was typing it out, I made it static, meaning we could just use the name of the method. We didn't need to make an object first. Okay? So could anybody else post a solution that they had? Maybe theirs looks a little bit different.
Professor, I have a question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain the return thing at the end of the conditional? Like,
Sure.
Why do we have to like return the A plus B and then if A is greater? Like, I know it's like those are the conditions met, but like, can you explain what return does? Because like I know in coding bat we have to do that a lot. I just didn't understand.
Return?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, just return in general.
Sure, yeah, return. So when you have a method, the method will end once you get to the return statement. So we have the first line in this string comp, if a.length equals, if it's the same length as b.length. So if a's length is the same as b's length, then we're going to return string a plus string b. The plus sign can concatenate the two strings together. It adds them together. So then we have whatever's in A and whatever's in B. Now, if they aren't the same length, we're going to go to line 5. And line 5 is going to see, is A bigger or is B bigger? If A is greater than B in terms of the length, in terms of the number of characters, then we're going to return A. Otherwise, we're going to return B. So the point of a return statement is you end the method there. Okay, so somebody else said, did that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. So like,
Okay.
it's just ending the method in general. Like,
Yes, return
okay.
ends the method. So return will send back the value to whoever called the method.
Okay. All right.
So somebody else wanted to know, how else would you call that method? Well, we could also call it by using the class name. So we could also type it out like this. We could also say main.stringComp. So let me just type in some values here. course, it takes a minute to load everything up. And oh, you know what? There's no prompt, so I got to go AABB. Okay, perfect. So this is the other way. Yeah, no prompt. Luckily, I didn't sit there too long, but sometimes that happens to me. All right, so now if you see, one difference here is we have dot. So you can just use the name class and then the name of the method. So you could either just call the method or call it that way. So that would be how to call it. Okay, so we have another student who posted a solution here. Let's go ahead and check this out into our browser here. And we see okay, so we see with if and else if and then return. So this is probably how most people are going to be solving it, because we probably do a lot more if examples than we do with the conditional operator, the ternary operator. But here we can see if the lengths are the same, return A plus B. Else, if A is bigger than B, return A. And lastly, if you get to that last point, return B. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to see, the difference between this and if and else if.
Professor, isn't it missing an else?
No, it doesn't need to have the last else. That would just be a style question. If somebody likes to have the last else, they can put it, but it doesn't need to have it. It could just say return B.
Okay.
All right. And then we got some other comments. Well, we have Javier posting. Looks good. Yeah, Javier did use the last else. That's good. Okay. He's saying if A.length. All right. Okay. Yeah, I can see pretty quickly why it doesn't work, because look at the B.length. The B.length, it needs to be spelled right. So you'd have to put B.length. Seriously, it's it's super common. I understand you need to return something outside of the if statements in case they don't work, but why are you returning B? All right, why are you returning B? So in this case, because all the other conditions, like we have if the lengths are the same, we return A plus B. And then if the length of A is greater than B, then we return A. The only other option is that B is the largest, because they could either be the same, that's one, A could be bigger, that's two, and then the only other option is that B is bigger. So that's why the return B could just be left like that. Nice. Good. So even with the dot length, it doesn't work? All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and copy this code into REPL. And we'll just paste this here. All right, so we'll change this A.length, B.length, A.length, B. All right, let's see. So we have some string comp. let's see. So we got string comp. A dot length is greater than B dot length. All right. Actually, yeah. Now I'm getting flustered. Andrew, are we? Okay, so let's see. So whose code is up on the screen right now that I have? This is working code, isn't it? So whoever has a problem code. Okay, the stream froze because that's not yours. That's mine. Okay, so let me go ahead and copy Andrew's. So let's copy Andrew's. And let's go back here and paste this in here. Okay, and let's run this here. All right, so it says type a name AAA, type another name BB. AAA is longer. Well, this one works. Okay, try like the same. AABB. Oh yeah. So it says AAB is longer. I see. Well, I guess the only issue is pretty much on 28. You're saying is longer, and you don't really need to say is longer because they might be the same, right? Perfect. Yeah, you forgot they could be the same. Nice. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and leave this example. Oh, we do have another question. Question: why are string name1 and name2 identified with double quotation marks? Why can't they just be declared as string name1? I'm not quite sure. Does anybody else have an answer for that? Brian, maybe could you try to state it? So you can give them the. Oh, now I think I see what you're saying. Okay, now I think I see what you're saying. All right. So why do we start giving the value of nothing? Okay, well, if you don't give the value of nothing, it's going to be null. And so you don't need to initialize a value. Like if we knew that we were going to read in with the next line, you can go ahead and take this out. You can just start them at null. And then once we call scanner.nextLine, yeah, it'll read in the value and it'll work. So I just erased the empty string. I'm going to type in BBB, AA, BBB is longer. So you can totally do it like this. This is not a problem. So this will work. All right. String name 1, string name 2, that works. The reason why I give them a value is to avoid the null situation. So didn't we have some examples where we would make an array, put in a few values into the array, and run into null values? So yeah, perfect. Brian's got it. So in C++, initialize everything as a 0. It's kind of just the idea that you're setting the value if it could be null, just to avoid null. Now with Java, if you're inside of a class and you have an int and you don't set it to anything, it's going to be set to 0. All right. So if we're inside of the main, let's try this out. Int I system.out.println I. Okay, let's run this here. Okay, I might not have been initialized. So this is a problem. If you're inside a public static void main, let's type this out here, Java, it will not work. The program will not run. Okay, so this is the exact error. It will say variable I might not have been initialized. Now, if you're inside of the class, that's not an issue. Like if we're in class main and we have int I with nothing, no problem. That's not going to be an issue. But if we're inside of the main, yeah, we would need to give it int I equals 0. Okay, so on this one, this will work. Java. Okay, that works inside of main. All right, perfect, good, good. So lots of great questions, lots of good participation. And let's go ahead and leave this example behind. And let's go now to Coding Bet. Perfect. We've got some examples working. Good. So now let's go to, yeah, that's a great way to put it. In the method initialize, in the class, don't have to. Yeah, that gets a thumbs up. Perfect. So let's go to string 1 problems. And let's go to last 2. All right. So let's all this problem here. Okay. So this problem says, given a string of any length, return a new string where the last 2 characters, if present, are swapped. So coding yields codigan. So we have the last 2, coding, codigan, cat gives CTA, and then AB, you just swap them to BA. All right, and yes, Java is case sensitive, so that's a good point too. So let's see. Let's go ahead and try to solve this one. Why don't we try to solve it as a group? So what might be the first thing? What's the first thing we should do? So just go ahead and you can either unmute yourself or type it out. I kind of like typing because then we can sort of see the thought process later. So what do you think is the first way we should approach this problem? Okay, find the length. That's good. So we can say in here int length equals str.length. Nice. Oh, and someone wrote length. Right. So we got the length.
Maybe use char at.
Okay, so we could use char at. So char at is a possibility. So we could do char at last and char at second to last. Okay, that's possible. So could you put the string in a character array? Yeah, you could certainly do that too. So we could say char array chars equals str to char array. Yeah. And then we just take the last two and we swap them. That seems like it would work.
What's two char array?
Two char array is where we're just going to be going from the string to a character array. So if we just type this in here to Google, we can see Geeks for Geeks is a pretty good site. There are tons of ways of doing it just within the string array, within just the string methods. So there's really not one right answer. I don't mind trying to do it with just the array of chars. So let's just do that. Let's just take the two array of chars. So why don't we get the last character? So we can say last character equals chars at chars.length -1. It has to be length -1 because it's 0 indexed. Don't forget 0 indexed. And then we can take what is in the second to last and move it into the last character. So we can say chars at position chars.length -2 equals last char. I think I'm doing this backwards here, because we need to store the second to last char, don't we? Second to last char. Okay. And now I'm going to put what used to be in that into the last character. So I'll say chars.length -1 equals, okay, second. All right, see, now I've talked myself into a corner. Let me see if I can think my way out of this. So we have, it's not a hard problem. We have the second to last character, and then we're going to have the second to last character get the last character. So I say chars.length -1. And then what was in the last character, now we put second to last character. And then we just need to return new string with chars. So let's see if that's right. All right. So here we got this, we got this. And let's see, we got some problems. And look what the problems are. The problems are I'm getting an array out of bounds exception. Okay, I'm going too far. So how can I fix this? How can I fix this situation? If my code is not working, what can I put in to get around this situation? All right. Anyone have any ideas?
Maybe an if statement.
Yeah, an if statement. I can say if the length is what? If the length is greater than 2, then run this code here. Okay, that makes sense. And then if it's not greater than 2, then what should I do? Return string. Okay, let's try that. Return string. And I think I should make this code look a little nicer. There we go. Okay, so we got a problem with line 17. Let's see what the problem. One too many curly braces. So we're almost there, but I think the problem is with the greater than 2. Instead of greater than 2, we should say what?
Greater than or equal.
Yes, very good. Greater than or equal. So we run it, and we get them all correct. So in the end, yeah, you could totally do it with an array of characters. And that was a good way of putting it, since we had mentioned earlier that there's a way to convert from an array of characters into a string. So now we see a solution using an array of characters. So could you do it with some of the built-in string methods? Yeah, for sure. You could do it in many different ways, right? There's not just one way to solve this problem. All right, good. So any questions or comments about this problem?
Professor, how would you do it with with the char at?
Okay, well, with char at, then what we could do is, instead of working with all of these array of characters, we could just, let me erase this code here. All right, so if the length is greater than or equal to 2, we could say we want the string begin equal to, all right, we want the string begin equal to the str.substring 0 through str.length, and then we want to do -2, and then we could have the swapping of the last two characters. So the char last equals str.char at str.length -1, and then char second last equals str char at str.length -2, and then we want to return begin plus, and now we want to reverse them. We want to say last plus second last. And I think that should work. Let's give it a try. Okay, yeah, that's good. So this would be a way of doing it with char at. Now, when I was doing the problem with the array of characters, one of the problems was there was a 2-year-old here screaming in the other room, and it was very hard to concentrate with such shrieking. So, so the truth is, when you're doing your coding, it really makes sense to have nice music playing, and even if you're around other people, just get yourself away from the distractions. You know, if you have people bothering you or babies screaming, it's really hard to focus. So, I mean, look, maybe if the baby wasn't screaming, I would have gotten like a little flustered on it too. I don't know. Like, it sometimes your brain takes a minute to like make sense of things and figure it out, even if it's not a hard problem. But that's just a point about programming, how you really do need good concentration. And if you're always breaking out of your flow to do other things, it's really going to be harder. So just keep that in mind when you're working with these sort of problems, just to try to have your best focus possible, or else it really just makes it so much harder to get things solved.
Professor, I have a question.
Sure, yeah.
Can you explain what's it called? The substring line? So
Yeah, sure. Yeah, substring is really important. You gotta know substring. So the way substring works is, substring is a built-in method. Kids during quarantine, exactly. They're getting restless. Substring works like this. You go from a character to another character. So in this case, we're talking about index. So we're going from 0 to string.length -2. So we're going to go all the way from the beginning of the string to the end of the string -2. So I would say the best habit to get into, now that you guys are learning this new language, is you should look up, let me just pull this up here. Okay, here it is, substring. Great. Let's go ahead and post this link here. Okay, go ahead and click on that link for substring. And it says that we have a few different ways of working with substring. If you just give one integer, like int begin index, it goes from that position to the end of the string. Okay, so it's the beginning index inclusive all the way to the end of the string. Now, the other option is to go from the beginning index to the ending index. All right, so this is the other one. And you know what? I want to talk for a second about that comment. You see it like an array, so you always mess up the second end. I would say the top programmer I've ever worked with at Miami-Dade who went to a programming competition and basically won first place, the guy was a total genius. He once said he was so sick of substring because every language implemented it differently. You had to learn all the different implementations. So it can be confusing, and you're going to forget, is it inclusive? Is it exclusive? That's why you're always able to look up the documentation, and you shouldn't beat yourself up if you have to look at the documentation. If you get an off by one error, it's going to happen. Now, as you keep using it again and again and again, it'll start to get easier and easier, but just to learn all the different implementations of substring, yeah, there's definitely time involved with that, energy involved with it, and it's, yeah, documentation helps until you get comfortable with it, and don't feel like it's any sort of like problem if you have to keep looking this stuff up. That's a sign that you're growing, that you're getting better, and everybody does it. Everybody looks things up. It's just part of how you get better as a developer. So the substring basically removes the first characters from the string depending on the number. Yeah, exactly. The substring is going to give you part of the string depending on the numbers inside of the braces. Yeah, chemistry is notorious for that. You have to memorize everything. And I think part of that is because they're training for med school. And well, I know some of you are computer scientists and you're still having to take chemistry, but yeah, they're pretty notorious for making you memorize things. Yeah. But Javier, did that make sense? That it will get the characters depending on the numbers that you put in. So if you go 0, 2, you're just going to be getting the first two characters. Perfect. Good. All right. Excellent. So I think we've gotten a lot of good material today. So let's go ahead and look at your first exam here on Memer. Okay. So let's go to Summer Java 2020. And I kept the scavenger hunt open today. If you wanted to keep doing the scavenger hunt, that's fine. But for the most part, we're moving on past the scavenger hunt. And some people got it done, some people didn't. No worries if you didn't get it done. If you want to try one more time today, you could do it today. But if you don't get it, don't worry. It's an extra credit thing. So don't stress about the scavenger hunt. But the first programming test is important. So, I've gotten other messages. Other people want more scavenger hunts, but unfortunately, that's all they've done for the IDE. And listen, if you haven't done it and you have some free time today, I really recommend you doing it. So let's say that you've missed a few of the code reviews. Like let's say you skipped a few coding reviews. Well, if you do the scavenger hunt tonight, then you can make up for those missed code reviews. So do the IDE scavenger hunt. Don't let me discourage you. Like if you have the free time, do it. You're going to learn a lot. It's really enjoyable. I did it. I enjoyed it. A lot of students have done it. They've said really positive things. It's yeah, it's good. So if you get a chance, do it. You're going to learn a lot.
So the scavenger hunt, what is that specifically? Sorry.
All right, so let's let's take a minute before we do the test and let's talk about the scavenger hunt. So if we look here at the scavenger hunt, we can see you're given a fake scenario. All right. You're given this situation that Gordon Ramsay, like they put his name with Ram like this. He has an issue. He's got a secret recipe that you have to decode. Okay. So as you go through this, you have to look at the different folders and you have to figure out how to make this work, right? So you start off by clicking on Open in Meme or IDE. Okay, so takes a minute for the Meme or IDE to load up. Sometimes more time than others because of how many people are using Memer and whatnot. Okay, so if it starts up, you see, I keep the security system for my secret recipe here. Open the Java program just like you would open any other file using a terminal. Carefully read the instructions for running the program at the top of the file. You will need to move this program to use it. I remember making a note to myself in the entrees directory. Okay, so they teach you how do you run Java programs from the terminal. You have to use javac filename.java. If there are no error messages when compiling, a file named filename.class will be created. You can check for it using ls. So ls is another command that you're going to be using throughout this example. All right, so now you're ready to run your file, your Java file. You type out Java file name. You don't need to concern yourself with the code of the program. It won't help you decipher the recipe unless you have learned the answers to my security questions. Each of my security questions protects a different part of the file. If you only get some of the answers, you only get some of the file. So we can use ls to see, all right, we have these different folders: desserts, entrees, personal, secrets, and tools. So why don't we start with desserts? We can cd into desserts and then press ls, and we see, all right, in desserts, we have buttermilkpie.txt, lemonbars.txt, mousse.txt, readme.md. So why don't we go ahead and open readme.md. Okay, so now we see desserts. And he says, I get tired of opening files like this with open file name. You end up with more open tabs than a bar full of drunk waiters. So he's in this program, they are going to teach you how you can use new Linux commands to just navigate through your command line. All right. So you use these command lines, these commands, and you're going to find out more tips inside of this. Okay. So we can read the, I don't know, let's just read mousse.txt. And we see, all right, that's the beginning of the chocolate mousse. And then the tail of the chocolate mousse is like this. And, you know, there's going to be clues inside this. I don't want to sit here and like do it all for you. But the point is to learn how to maneuver through the command line. And it's really cool. So if you have some free time, you should go ahead and do that. But then when you're done, you just submit it. And as long as you've decoded everything, then you get, you know, the right answer. But, you know, from talking to students who have finished it, you're probably going to spend an hour on it. Maybe some people did it quicker. But yeah, it doesn't matter how many submissions. As long as you did it, you get 100%. So this one has no minimum. It's just you could try it 100 times and you get it. So, I mean, look, when I first went through the instructions, I didn't get everything decoded either. So, you know, it doesn't matter like how good you are with the command line, whether you've done it a long time or not. It takes a little bit of time, but it's, as everybody said, it's a good exercise. So there you go. All right, so now let's go ahead and we'll go back and look at your programming test, which is probably a lot easier than the command line project. So the test has 3 parts. All 3 classes are to be worked with in the starter code provided for you. You are to complete the assignment on your own without the help from anyone else. So the idea is, if you just copy the code and put it in Discord, and then everybody copies the code and pastes it, there's no challenge to this. That's not learning how to program. That's just, copying and pasting. So for this assignment, you have to work on it on your own. And if you have a question, you could post a question. Like if you go into Discord and you say, what is a double? And then somebody says, oh, a double is a number that has a decimal place, then that's fine. But the reality is, a lot of those questions, like what is a double, you need to get in the habit of just searching for it. Just look for Google double Java and then see what it says. So anyways, let's read through this, and then that'll be the end of today's lesson. So part 1 says, work in class circle. Design a class named circle with double fields named radius and circumference and area. Include a default constructor that sets the radius to 1 and then calculates the other 2 values. Include a second constructor that accepts a value for the radius. So you see here, we have 2 constructors inside a public circle. All right. Then I even give you the calculations. Circumference is 2 times pi times r. Area is pi times r squared. Use math.pi for this calculation. So you can just copy this in and then paste it to your code, right? Math.pi. Include the methods getRadius and setRadius. Also include a method getArea and getCircumference. The main method to enter and display the data is provided for you. You are to finish the circle class in circle.java. So if we were to go to Open in Memer IDE, and again, have to wait for Memer to go through the steps of loading it up. All right, then we go here to Programming Test 1, circle.java. You see, I give you, wait a minute. There might be a problem here. Shoot. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I might have to fix something here. But I think this has all the right answers. You won't complain. No, wait. I know why it shows all the right answers. Okay. So the reason why it shows all the right answers for me is because I just did this before class started just to see how long it would take me to do the test. But yeah, I downloaded the starter code and you shouldn't see all the answers. So that's good. That's fine. All right. The next one is work in class check array. Using a method has 4 or 5. Okay. You're going to read in an integer array, and you're going to determine if there is a 4 or a 5 within this, then you return true. If no 4 or 5 can be found, return false. So once you find a 4 or a 5, you say true. At the end, say false. And then you have one more part that says work in class array size. Start with 2 int arrays, A and B, each length 4. Calculate the sum of the values in each array. Return the array with the largest sum. In the event of a tie, return A. All right. So you're going to get practice working with int arrays. You're going to get practice working with classes. And it's not a terribly challenging first test. So with being able to look things up, refer back to code, it's easy, it's straightforward, it's not hard. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is some people are forgetting to do their weekly code reviews. Some people didn't do the first Memer assignment, which wasn't extra credit, that was an assignment. And some people might forget to do this. So you can't fall into that trap. The thing is, you have to set aside time to do it. I mean, I'm going to end things early today. I don't think many people will finish it in the next 15 minutes. Maybe I think some of you could finish this in 15 minutes, just because I've seen how fast you code. But most of you, it's going to take some time, but you got to set aside the time to do it. Okay, so the test is going to close on 6/28/50. So you have a lot of time, right? Like somebody could wait until 6/28 and work on it that day. But don't do that to yourself. Start on it earlier, get it out of the way, and then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, the other thing is you're limited by your submissions. So there you go. Okay, so now I have a question. Can I give a brief review on constructors? Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I'll do an example on constructors. So let's go ahead back to REPL. Let's go to repl.it. And we'll go ahead and make a new REPL. And let's make a new REPL with Java. And we'll just call it, we'll just give it the name that they use. So we'll just say create REPL. Yeah, we could spend class time talking about pretty much anything. Like somebody asked about the constructor. So we can go ahead and make a new class, like call it class A. All right. And then class A is going to have two constructors. So let's say that class A needs to keep track of one int I. Okay, we have int I. So in the first constructor, we're going to just set I equal to 10. Okay, this is the first constructor. And the second constructor, we're going to actually send in the value of I. So we're going to say this.I equals I. This is the second constructor. Second constructor. All right. So let's go ahead and look at this code here. And we've got, 5 attempts. Okay.
Professor, what are you doing in these constructors? Like, aren't you just initializing a variable on the first one?
So, yeah, basically with this first constructor, we're not taking any data from the console, right? For this constructor, for the constructor on line 5, we're not reading anything from the user. We're just hard coding I equal to 10. For the second one, we're asking for the value and sending it in. So let's go ahead and make some A objects to see the difference here. So we can say A equals new A, and then we'll just print out system.out.println A.I. So expecting what? What are we expecting after line 16 runs? If you can see on my stream.
10.
10, very good. So let's run it and make sure it's 10. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't good. Okay, so now we have our first constructor, which is running. All right. How do we know which constructor is going to run? Well, the constructor that matches the call after new, that's what runs. So if we say A parentheses 11 close parentheses, then I is going to be set to 11. So we can go ahead and say AB equals new A, send in 11, and then system.out.println AB.I. And here we are expecting 11. So let's go ahead and run it. And we see 10 and then 11. Okay, so now we have the second constructor that runs. And you see a new question. The new question is, what is the purpose of the constructor? Well, the purpose of the constructor is to set values for the fields inside the object, right? So our A class says we're going to keep track of one integer I. And we could do something like this. We could do something like this. A dot I equals 12. And then we're going to change this to 12. So you can change variables as long as they're not private with the dot operator or with a setter. But with a constructor, oops, I meant for that to be a C++ Java formatted Java. Okay, perfect. So it's basically just to set the values at the beginning. So which constructor runs in this case is dependent on whether we put exactly. Yes, if you don't put a value in, you're going to get the first constructor, the one on line 5. If you do put a value in, you get the constructor on line 9. So in capital A equals capital A, lowercase a equals new, capital A, parentheses, the first A is referring to the class, yes. So when we make our objects, the first letter always, well, excuse me, the first word we put in this case the word is a letter, is always going to be the name of the class. So when making an object, you do it like that. So the first part of that, the A, capital A, lowercase a, the lowercase a is an object reference. So I think 2 hours ago when we were talking about C and C++, how there are pointers, this object reference is similar to a pointer, right? Because we can access a memory location with the object reference. But it's also possible to make an object without an object reference. Let me show you how to do that. We can say system.out.println new A dot I. Okay, so we run this. And we see, if you just make a generic A object, it will just give you 10, right? So we say, look, if we don't send in a value for I, then what do? We set I equal to be 10, and that is inside of the constructor that doesn't have any values sent in. So another way to call this is a default constructor. And if you don't make a constructor at all, Java gives you a default constructor. Right? So since we're just doing a review on constructors, let me just go ahead and minimize class A and then make a, let me minimize that. There it is, minimize class A, and just make a class B. Yes, the class and the constructor absolutely have to be the same name, and there's no return type. Okay, int j equals 20. So now I'm going to make a B object. So I'm going to say B equals new B. And then I'll just print out system.out.println B.j. And we're expecting 20. So we run it, and we see that j is equal to 20. All right, so now we see a new class, class B. And with this class B, we did not make a constructor. No constructor was made for B. So how were we able to make our object of B? Well, because of this, the Java default constructor. So let's go to Stack Overflow. Paste this here. And let me be a little bit more, you know what? Let me be a little bit more specific in my explanation. Previously, when I made my class A and I put I equals 10 inside of that constructor, think if you rewound this, you would hear me call that the default constructor. Now, according to this Stack Overflow terminology, not really the best terminology, because if you define it, it's not the default. But it's similar in that it's a no argument constructor. But this is what I'm leading up to. This is the main point of all this constructor talk. Let's copy and paste this line from Stack Overflow. The default constructor is the no argument constructor automatically generated unless you define another constructor. Okay, so if we look at our example B, I didn't make a constructor. So Java made a constructor for us that takes in no arguments. So you see, in our class A, we do have a no argument constructor for A, and we also have a constructor that takes in a single integer. So we have two constructors. How many constructors can you have? As many as you need. You can have as many constructors as you need. So on this test question, you're asked to do one constructor that has, you know, and I think I call it a default constructor. You know what, I'm going to edit that and call it a no argument constructor, because, you know, it's best to be as specific as you can. So include a no argument constructor and set the radius to 1. So now I think I'm being more specific, and I like that.
Professor, so we're setting the radius and then whatever calculations we need, and then for the second one, we're like, we're doing the argument, so we have to put like this dot whatever. Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see. Now we have a new comment here. I equals 10, and it looks like, so you don't need this. Well, I mean, you really don't need any constructor. Like, you can make objects without a constructor. Exactly. Java makes its own until you make a constructor. Once you make a constructor of any type, then it takes away the no argument constructor.
What's the point of the constructor then?
The constructor is to set all the values at one point, at one time. So, like, instead of using .set, sending them all in, you can just do them all at one time. Like, if the example here that I have with the class A, if it's really important to set this int I, we might say, you know what? We're not going to let the user make an A without setting the I. If we wanted to do that, we could just erase this first constructor. And if we tried to run this code again, it won't work. You see, given constructor A in class A cannot be applied to given types. Go ahead and copy and paste this error here. So if you make your own constructor, a no argument constructor is gone with Java. So when I erased my no argument constructor, line 18 stopped working. We couldn't just make an A like this. This became impossible. And the reason just depends on how do you want to define what your A object is. If you're saying your A has to have an I, then you won't let it be created without the I. You can't use any other method. You're saying, no, you have to send in this integer in order to make the A object. So in that case, to make this work, I could just put into line 18 something like 44. And if I go down to line 24, I could say set a value in there. Okay, and try that again, 44. Okay, now it's working. So now we see with this A object, we have to send in the value of I. Okay, we have to send in an integer for it to work. You can't make an A without that integer. All right, so looking at the time, looks like we're over time. People have asked a lot of good questions. So let's see. Why don't I just answer the last questions and then we'll call it a day. So the 44 is overwritten by the 12. Yes, exactly. You can change what you send in initially with the constructor, but yeah, you need the 44 for it to run. The constructor demands that you send in an integer in order to get it to work. All right, so for attendance tonight, let me just go ahead and do it through logging into Memer. So Memer keeps a nice record of your attendance, so that'll be really easy for me. Just go ahead and sign into Memer. If you've already signed in, then you can call it a night. But good questions, and that's the end of the stream. So talk to you guys next class.